Hey, what's up? I'm the Malt Activist.
And I'm GWhisky.
And welcome to episode 2 of the Caskholes.
Welcome back, everybody. This is our second episode ever. This is something that we're going to come back to, I suppose, every few weeks, whenever we have the time to get together, when our schedules allow. But we want to make this a regular thing where, unlike a lot of the other stuff on our channel that's very sort of concise and very structured, this is going to be more of a free-flow conversation type thing. Like I said, we've already put out one episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And each time we come back, we'll have a few different topics lined up for you today.
Yep.
And one thing that I want to do before we start off, this is a little bit more on a somber note, but our good friend Phil over at First Fill Whiskey, he hosted a VPub the other day, and it was a very frank, very honest, and honestly rather tragic news that he shared with us. And Phil unfortunately lost his mom a few weeks back. And before we get into anything too whiskey related or anything lighter, I do want to just send some love out to Phil. I think I speak for the entire whiskey community out here when we say, Phil, we've got your back. We're here for you, buddy. And stay strong. That's that. And probably
shout out to Phil, man. Shout out to Phil.
And oftentimes,
thinking of you, buddy.
Dude, I always feel bad. I put out a video the other day, because every time I talk about Phil, I take the piss in my videos. I put out a video the other day, not knowing that had happened, and then I watched the VPub the next day. I'm like, oh no. So Phil, next time I mention your name, it will probably be straight back to taking the piss. But for now, we're here, we're with you, and all the best. So that said, what I want to talk about today with you, buddy, is I want to talk about sweet spots in whiskey, because some people will say that whiskeys are at their best maybe at 10 years old, 12 years old, 18-year-olds. Can we generalize, or should we break it down by brand? Are there certain brands that peak at different times? I think most people would agree that yes, they do. So are there any brands that you think peak, let's say, within a certain range or at a certain age?
Yeah, actually, I genuinely feel across most whiskeys that a good sweet spot for me is anywhere between 8 and I want to say 12, 13, 14. Around 8 to 12 is probably my sweet spot, because I think the whiskey sort of retains its vibrancy, but at the same time it's kind of mature enough to be a little complex. And of course I'm talking about best case scenario, right? I mean, there's some really shitty 25-year-olds out there, as well as some really crappy 6-year-olds or whatever. But the one that kind of made me start thinking about sweet spots was when Lagavulin came out with their 8-year-old. And that kind of blew me away, because, I was a big fan of the 16 at the time, and the 12-year-old cask strengths were my absolute favorite Lagavulins ever. But when the 8-year-old came out, and then it came out at about 48% ABV, if I remember correctly, very, very decently priced as well. It kind of ticked all the boxes for me, and it got me thinking. And I'm like, I always, had this impression of Lagavulin at later years, just because of, what the stuff that they put out. And I thought it was a very bold and brave move to put an 8-year-old out and have an age statement on it. And that sort of made me think. And I'm like, wow. And that spirit really came through beautifully. I didn't think it could, but it really did. So yeah, for me, I think Lagavulin 8 was that turning point, and kind of made me then realize that I have this propensity to like these whiskeys between this 8 and 12-year-old age range. I think probably 10 is my absolute sweet spot, but I'm happy anywhere between 8 and 12.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it depends on the brand, but for lagers, certainly, I do like the younger lagers as well. I like the 16 a lot. I know you're a little bit more iffy on the 16, but for me, it's just I go so far back with it, and I think it's an absolutely beautiful whiskey. Of course, there's always the conversation about the color, the chill filtration, the ABV, which is valid, but I still love the whiskey. But that Lager 8, when I first tried it, I thought, oh wow, this is such an honest whiskey. There's no cask aromatics involved. We're not doing anything too fancy. It is just the distillate talking. It's at an age where it's still very punchy, but it's not sort of like it's not too casky, and it's not it's just a straightforward lager that's well done. So interestingly, that was my whiskey of the year a couple of years back, and I still love it. I still come back to it. I also enjoy the 10-year-old, which is that travel retail? I think that one's a travel retail.
I think the 10 is the travel retail. Actually, even in my market, the 8 is also one of the travel retails.
Oh, okay. That might be the case.
Yeah.
A lot of travel retail here in Taiwan you can just get at the shop, so I can never tell what is and what isn't. But certainly the 8, the 10, beautiful whiskeys, 12 cask strength. I love. I don't necessarily agree with the prices. I do think they get really, maybe you're going to disagree here, I think they get really hyped up by the community. And while I think they're beautiful, oftentimes I won't pay that price for them. Do you buy them regularly?
No, yeah, so I'm with you on that, right? Back in the day, I might be completely wrong here, but I think back in the day, the 12-year-old cask strength was not part of the Diageo special release, which is a new development. So now, just by the fact that it's now part of the special release, it's priced like that, and which is why I haven't bought Lagavulin 12 cask strength, I want to say, for maybe 5 or 6 years now, because of that pricing. It just doesn't make sense. You're paying about, I want to say, about 150 pounds, or if not more, for a 12-year-old cask strength whiskey. It definitely doesn't justify the price for me.
Yeah, and I remember those. I genuinely loved those early batches. I was buying stuff, like the 2010, 2011 batches. This is before the Diageo special releases was even a thing, but that specifically was an annual release, and those were gorgeous whiskeys. But as soon as the special releases kicked in, they get criticized for their gimmicky labels, and all the prices start shooting up. Are they still good whiskeys? Absolutely, but for that price, questionable. I know a lot of people love them, so that's always a bit of a hot take. But yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I know. What are your sweet spot whiskeys?
Okay, so I think it would be fun to kind of go distillery by distillery. A few kind of come to mind, and one that's really interesting, for me anyway, is Craig Aleky. Craig Aleky 13 for me is absolutely the sweet spot. When you factor in value, are there better Craig Alekys? You could argue the 17 is, the 19, the 23. I've got the whole range, in fact, and they're all excellent. But from a value perspective, certainly I think that 13 is an absolute banger, and I think it is one of the best affordable whiskeys on the market of all time. Bold claim, I know, but I absolutely love Craig Aleky 13. How much of the range have you tried, out of curiosity?
So I've definitely tried the 13 and the 17. I don't think I've tried the 19 or the 23. Definitely 13 and 17. Having said that, I've had some really interesting IBs. Like, one of the recent ones that I had was, I want to say, a signatory Craig Aleky, and I was at a weird sort of, I think it was like 14 years or something, and cask strength, decently priced, blew my socks off. Absolutely loved it.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's another nice thing about Craig Aleky's. As much as I love the OB line, it's an easy brand to find and explore in the IBs in the IB world as well. And there's a lot of bangers out there, so that you can get good Craig Aleky pretty much everywhere. But for me, that 13 just captures the spirit of the distillery. It's got that rugged side. It's fruity, but it's also a little bit like a grilled pineapple, and there's almost like these savory notes to it. Worm tub stuff, we can always thank the worm tubs for that. But I like the whole range, but it's that classic, law of diminishing returns. How much are you paying for how much of a step up in quality? Is there a step up in quality? Sure, but does it justify the price? Maybe not. So for me, Craig Aleky, the 13's got to be the sweet spot. Yeah,
that's a good choice. That's a great one, by the way. I've got another one that I frequently keep going back to, and that would be Springbank, right? And again, the 10-year-old Springbank for me, and it's one of the whiskeys that I fell in love with very early on in my career, was the 10-year-old cask strength. They also do a bloody beautiful 12-year-old cask strength, which I'm an absolute fan of. So the 10 and 12, I mean, just I was fascinated by Campbelltown whiskies because of Springbank and that Campbelltown funk. There's almost this sort of diesel engine oil quality to it, which I know sounds horrible, but it just, when it's perfectly balanced in that whiskey, there's just something so beautifully charming and rugged about it, and which also, by the way, I it'd be remiss for me not to mention Longrow, which I actually like more than Springbanks, to be honest, just because of that really, really thick syrupy texture that the Longrows have. And I have this beautiful Longrow, not very old, it's a 9-year-old Longrow, matured in Burgundy casks, and I think there's sitting on my Burgundy wood. Oh, sorry, my bad. I'm mixing it up. There's a 9-year-old in tequila casks, and then there's this 14-year-old in Burgundy wood, which I got long time back, which is just an absolute just banger, So yeah, anything out of Springbank Distillery for me, which is in that 9 to 12-year-old range. Ideally at cask strength, though I shouldn't complain because they're coming in at least at a standard 46%, which is highly appreciated. But yeah, Springbank for me, I think again, sweet spot is that 10-year-old. Even at 46%, I think it's a beautiful whiskey.
Yeah, I remember that 10-year-old cask strength. That's long gone. I haven't seen it in ages, but that one was an absolute beauty.
Yeah.
For me, I always lean. My favorite's always just the 12 cask strength. They kind of mess around with the casks every year, but that's always quite sherry forward. It's the intensity's there. 15 tends to be the more divisive one. A lot of people say it's a little bit too sherried and it's a little bit too settled, so you're losing some of that energy. I mean, basically any Springbank. Springbank is Springbank for a reason, and I like it all. But yeah, I think for me, I would agree, but I would lean more towards the 12 cask strength than the 10-year-old.
Yeah, fair point.
But same ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, which one of your kids are you gonna choose, right? I love them both.
Yeah, there we go. All right, next.
Give me one more.
Speyburns. Speyburns an interesting one.
That is really interesting, and I'm glad you brought that one up because I don't think people talk about it enough, and I think it's one of those dark horses out there that just packs so much value and flavor.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it took off a couple years back when Roy on the Aquavite channel kept on talking about the 15, rightfully so, because it was this undiscovered gem. And it was on the back of that recommendation that I picked up my first 15. Then I moved on to the 18. I do not have the 10, but I've tried the 10. And it might just be a matter of sort of like the casks they're using. But I was not a big fan of the 10. I know some people are, but I didn't. I found very little that was memorable or particularly special about it. I thought it was a decent whiskey. That's about it. But then the 15 and the 18 is where they really shine. And the big question for me was always which one is the better value, and is the 18 better? And I could never really decide if I liked the 18 more than the 15. I think marginally it felt a little bit sweeter. Didn't feel substantially older. And of course it was more expensive. So I always landed on the 15 for that sweet spot for Speyburn. How about you?
Yeah, that makes sense, right? So again, agree with you 100%. I actually picked up the 10 very recently, just to see if anything had changed. It hadn't. And but you know what? I think there's a certain utility to the 10 as well, which is, hey, I'm going to have a whiskey evening. Now, before I decide what to drink, let me just have a dram of the 10 to wet my palate and get the evening started, right? So I think it serves, for me at least, it serves that utility, frankly, right? Just get the palate wet. Let's not think too much about it. And again, it's about, I want to say, about a $50 whiskey. It's age statement. It's, no non-chill filtered, natural color, all of the good stuff. So I think that way it does well. But I agree with you 100% that the 18 definitely a banger. But again, I think it's because of Roy's video probably that the prices have gone up on that, because it used to be very affordable, I remember. But I think the 15 just right in the middle. I couldn't agree with you more in terms of what it offers, it delivers, and how much you pay for it. I think it just kind of ticks all the boxes. Yeah, so I think that's a great pick, by the way. That's a great pick.
Beauty. Interesting little tangent that's not actually related to that, but that's always kind of a funny thing, because, you know, if we're on YouTube and we're talking about great whiskeys, and a whiskey starts to take off because we've been sort of pushing it and we're saying, oh, it's great, it's affordable, go out and buy it, and then suddenly the price starts to climb. And that's obviously very much was not Roy's intention. And I don't know if it's because of that, but potentially maybe it is. And I know that's certainly the case with like Ralphie when he does his Whiskey of the Year stuff, where it's just like,
100%.
That's going to start flying off the shelves. And Ralphie's, he's always quite pissed, rightfully so, because what he'll even say is, brands, please do not up your price for this. This is my Whiskey of the Year. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. Keep that price where it is. Because that's always, a concern if something takes off and then suddenly it gets more expensive, which is always frustrating. That did actually happen. I don't know about in your market, but Speyburn 15 did climb in price. I don't know if it would have done that anyway without the big, hype from Roy a couple of years back or not. But anyway, tangent. Let's do one more.
That's a good tangent. By the way, that's a good tangent if you want to stay there. Because the same thing happened with the Lecheg 10.
Yeah.
Which I think is it's probably in my top 5 whiskeys of all time. Maybe I exaggerate, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And that also started going up. I think it was Ralphie's Whiskey of the Year as well. I think it was my Whiskey of the Year as well, for absolutely all the right reasons. But yes, I did see an increase in price. And that's one of the few whiskeys I keep buying a lot of. I don't buy a lot of the same whiskeys, but I think the Lecheg 10 is probably, it's probably my most repeated purchase.
Oh, wow. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway,
let's do one.
If any brands out there are listening, leave the prices alone, if you please, especially if something wins some kind of YouTuber Whiskey of the Year or whatever. Don't touch it. I want to move on to one last.
Don't take us seriously. I would say don't take us seriously. We don't know shit.
We don't know anything. Leave it alone. Last brand. We're gonna move on to one last brand. Where is the sweet spot for Arran? Now this one's a little bit tricky because most Arrans are going to be no age stated, right? It's the sherry one, the quarter cask, beautiful whiskeys, particularly the quarter cask. I'm a big fan of that one. The barrel reserve, all the Amarone casks and all the Sauternes casks. There's not a lot of age-stated Arran, so of course our mind is going to go straight to the 10. But they do have the 18. I'm sure you've tried the 18. There's always these rumors swirling that at some point we're going to get a 14 again or a 15 at some point, which would be great. They've done some limited release 17-year-olds, 15-year-olds, but I think those were one-offs. I don't know how many of those you've tried, but like, where would you say is the sweet spot for Arran?
So interestingly, I was doing my research when I was reviewing the Arran quarter cask, and fairly credible information leads me to believe that the quarter cask is about 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And I think so is the sherry cask. I could be wrong on the sherry cask, but I'm fairly certain that the quarter cask is at about 9 years old. Mm-hmm. And again, I think, and this sort of solidifies my opinion of 8 to 10 or 11 being the sweet spot for most whiskeys that I end up liking. And so I think I agree. I think, again, the 9-year-old, the quarter cask, which is quite possibly a 9-year-old whiskey, and the 10-year-old Arran, for me, I think for Arran is the sweet spot. I've tried the Arran 18, which I think is a decent dram, but again, we're looking at value versus what it delivers. And then when I bring it down to the quarter cask, which is first of all a cask strength whiskey, and my general take on 9-10-year-old whiskeys is that they have the youth and the vibrancy, but yet still mature enough to be complex. And I think I'll stick with the 9-10-year-old sweet spot for Arran as well.
Yeah, that's fair. I would too. It seems like you're really, you like the 8 to 10 range, which, for me, how about Ardbeg? So let's say if you got to choose between Ardbeg 8-year-old or Ardbeg 10-year-old, which one are you picking?
Oh, that's a good one, right? They're two different whiskeys.
They are.
I like them both. I think the 8 maybe does consistently better in terms of maintaining a certain level of quality. And I think the 10 has had some peaks and valleys over the years. Like, obviously, when it first came out, it was just absolutely stunning. I think they lost their way a little bit after a few years. But now I think they're kind of back because, again, the 10 is my go-to dram. And I think other than the late check 10, the Ardbeg 10 is also one of my most repeated purchases. So if you're going to put me in a bind and make me choose, I would have to choose the Ardbeg 10 over the 8.
Yeah, that's fair. And my take on Ardbeg, I think I mentioned in our last podcast, is that they do seem to be on the right trajectory. It does feel like they're paying a little bit more attention to the core range and even those special releases that always get criticized. I enjoyed the Smokyverse. I've got the Eureka on the go, and there's all these releases out that genuinely I'm enjoying. I still like the Wee Beastie. So yeah, Ardbeg. I hesitate to say that it's back to form, but it does seem to be going in a positive direction. That's my take. Anyway, let's move on. Sweet spots, definitely a thing, and I think it's always going to depend on the brand. Now, there's another topic that we kind of wanted to cover today, and that's the future of whiskey. So our little tagline here is transparency, tech, and terroir, and how important are each of those things. So I don't know. Why don't we talk about transparency a little bit? And obviously, I think we would both agree that's a good thing. But what would you say is a requirement for a very transparent brand? For a brand to be very transparent.
So, I think anything that affects pricing should be transparent, right? Because if you tell me, and I mean, companies like Macallan who have rare cask releases. That doesn't mean anything, right? And if you're going to charge me $300 for a bottle, fine, I'm willing to pay for it. If you tell me that there is a certain age of whiskey in that bottle, I'm not asking for the full recipe, but at least I need transparency on the age. And I think even with NAS whiskeys, right, Ardbeg is pretty open about, I mean, I'm using them as an example because it's sitting in front of me. They're pretty open about their NAS whiskeys being between 7 and 9 years of age. And that's fine. It is what it is. They're all precursors to the 10-year-old, right? I'm really happy that they put 5 on the Wee Beastie. I bought it because of that, Otherwise, if it was just the Wee Beastie, I would never have bought it. But they put the year on it, and that's why I bought it, because I respect that. So for me, I think age is the biggest factor of transparency, because that's what pricing was based on, right? A 20-year-old costs more than a 10-year-old for a reason, because there's that much less on the ground. But don't tell me this is a rare cask or hand selected by the master blender because whatever, and now you have to pay $300 for it. So that really pisses me off. You've triggered a nerve. Now this part's not going to end. And the other thing I really don't. I wish they were more transparent about is chill filtration. Coloring really doesn't bother me that much, but chill filtration, because it affects my actual drinking experience. Because I love thick syrupy whiskeys. And the second they're a whiskey that's thin on the palate, I don't like. So I'd really like to know if you're chill filtered. I'm probably not going to pick it up. And I think that's a level of detail that I would definitely want transparency on. So yeah, age and filtration. I'm not a huge fan of coloring. But I genuinely feel I don't think it really affects anything other than the cosmetic part of it. I might be wrong, but I've not. I don't think I can taste E150 caramel. I don't think I can.
Oh, interesting. I think that's a fun topic. Maybe we can save that for another time. But yeah, going back, I would definitely agree that in an ideal world, we would see the age of every single whiskey on the shelves, and no age statement would not be a thing. Obviously, that's never going to happen, and I'm sure the industry has plenty of explanations for that. But yeah, I remember stuff like Lagavulin 8, Ardbeg 5, back when those dropped. We all felt like, okay, that's quite brave. It's quite bold of them, because I don't imagine any enthusiasts were upset. I'm sure we're all quite happy to see it, but the general market, people who aren't into whiskey, if they see a 5-year-old age statement, and that's definitely not commonplace, you don't see that often, how inclined would they be to buy something that young? I don't know what the numbers look like, for Ardbeg 5 or Lagavulin 8 or anything that's like sub 10 years old with an age statement. I don't know how well they sell, if it hurt them, if it helped them, but definitely I like that we're seeing it more. I'd still like to see a lot more of it than what we have already, but there are some brands that are taking the initiative, and, hats off to those guys.
Yeah. So I think by virtue of the fact that they're still being produced, I think the numbers should be okay.
Yeah, right. I think they're quite popular. Lagavulin 8, Ardbeg 5, but you always have to wonder how much of the whiskey community and WhiskyTw and the blogs and the vlogs, how much of that is an echo chamber versus how much are they selling in the real world, considering we're such a small fraction of the market. It's something to ponder. But yeah, transparency, definitely. I think age is crucial, absolutely crucial. But one thing that I do feel is good about the industry now, because people criticize price hikes, and things used to be better back in the day, but I don't think we've seen this level of transparency ever in the whiskey industry, and that's most apparent when we look at any newish distillery, newish brand that's trying to get off the ground. They're not going to make it unless they give us all the info we want, and a lot of them are. The easy example to this would be Ardnamurchan, right? They'll give you the QR codes. They'll give you you have the QR scan. It takes you to the website, and it talks about who bottled it, on what day, the cask breakdown. That's a level of transparency that we never would have seen, 15 years ago in the industry. And a lot of the new brands are doing that. So, I think there's reasons to be optimistic when it comes to transparency, but obviously we always want more. We want to know what the casks are. We want to know the age statement. We want to know, are you coloring? Are you chill filtering? And if you're not telling them, honestly, at this point, Diageo comes to mind. If you're not telling consumers that, you're a bit of a dinosaur.
Yeah, I agree. And I genuinely, I think, just on the subject of transparency on this bit, I think we, the consumers, not necessarily the bloggers or YouTubers, definitely those as well, but we, the consumers, I think we pushed for that transparency. We really created a noise, and we said, we're not dumping our hard-earned cash for stuff that's in the gray that we don't know about, right? And I think that's really one of the reasons why it gave confidence to Ardbeg or Lagavulin to put 5 or 8 on those labels and put them out there, right? Like everyone knows, the Very Young is a 6-year-old whiskey, And I'm not a huge fan of Jim Murray, but in one of his reviews, he said, "Be brave and put the number 6 on it and own it." It's probably one of the very few times I agree with Jim Murray, but I think it was really us going after the industry in our own way and saying, we need to know more before we actually give you our money, and I think they listened to us.
Yeah, I agree. Now let's move on to the next bit, because we've got 3 sort of like touchstones for this little topic here, and I want to move on to tech, which is kind of a broad topic. So, do you think that technology is changing the whiskey industry, and that, you know, you can take that any way you want. Maybe I'm talking about internet and marketing, but also genuine production processes. Have they been changed by new developments in tech, things like that? Because for me, I do think that, yes, there are some changes happening. I don't know how much you know about the brand Rose Isle, but they're called Diageo's Death Star Distillery. They put out a 12-year-old a couple of years back. I think there's another 12-year-old from last year and a 14 coming out this year. That 12-year-old from 2023 was their inaugural release. So their first release ever was already 12 years old. It was cask strength, and it was one of the most beautiful whiskeys. Gorgeous stuff. And it's a Death Star distillery. There's a lot of like automation there. There's stuff like, I think, what do they have? They have switchable condenser systems. So they can take out the condenser system at the top of the still and switch it up with something else to, you know, give it a different style. They're playing around with production techniques, and that's something that, you know, we didn't really have before. So, you know, that's a new kind of technology. And as far as I'm concerned, it worked. I don't know. Do you have any comments? Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any distilleries or ideas about tech and whiskey?
Yeah, that's interesting, right? So I think it's doing both, right? I think it's spawning new ideas, new concepts. Like, I'm very interested now in Rose Isle. Is that what you said? Is that what it's called? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to see how technology is affecting that. But also at the other end of the spectrum, I think there's also a certain amount of pushback to keep things traditional, right? And there is a certain honor and passion to keep the way that things were 200 years ago, because that's how whiskey is made. And it's an industry steeped in tradition. It's an industry steeped in culture. And that is something that is very hard to let go, right? So if it means, and I think there's a certain amount of, what's the word for it? Requirement that, you know, if a certain guy rakes the malted barley in a certain way, then that's the reason our whiskey is like that. Or there's a certain amount of superstition in whiskey making, right? Because even if they change stills, they make sure that they go and hammer the same dents into the stills to make sure that nothing changes, right? So I think it's a bit of both. I think with technology coming, there is definitely a push for new ideas and concepts, but there's also this superstitious requirement to not change anything. But where I think technology has really done a fantastic job for whiskey making is, I think, in internet marketing, is the ability for you and I to sit on YouTube and, you know, spout our opinion and talk about it and create a much bigger buzz for whiskey than, you know, it would have been possible. So I think from that angle, the social media / technology has really helped in creating a buzz, man. I think that's where it helps.
Yeah, obviously the internet has changed every industry, but whiskey is unique because, like you said, it's really a traditional whiskey, or it's really a traditional industry, and they like to do things the way they always have been done. And like, there's such a prestige, for example, if a distillery tells me they're using worm tubs, because that's something that it's a traditional technique, and it's something that I know based on experience that I tend to like the results of something distilled using worm tubs. And wow. So yeah, keep it traditional. So your marketing and your sort of approach to transparency should be modern. Your whiskey production, traditional. But, you know, how traditional, how much does that affect, you know, if the guy rakes the malt in a certain way? Like, do I need every grain of malt gently massaged by an old bearded Scottish guy, or can I just, you know, there's a lot of superstition there. But yeah, tech's definitely a changing thing. How about terroir, though? How important is terroir to you? And I guess this does fall back on transparency a little bit. It's definitely tied in. So are you concerned with terroir? Do you care that much about terroir? Is that a big thing for you?
I think it stems again from the whole aspect of whiskey being a very traditional product, right? And I think we were talking about this earlier, that for me, there's a certain amount of romance to the whole thing. And I think terroir is a very big part of that romance for me. Mm-hmm. And I know it might be a bit snobbish to say I can taste the terroir, but one whiskey that comes to mind, the Hawkshoe 12 for me, has this certain forest saltiness. It's a weird thing that I can't put my finger on, but for some reason, whenever I drink a Hawkshoe 12, I understand almost immediately where it was given birth, and I can just feel the elements in the whiskey. So I think in that sense, for me, probably terroir is important as well. And again, it stems from transparency, obviously, but also at the same time, I think there's a certain romance to where that whiskey was, made, where it was birthed, if you like. So yeah, I think it's important. And I think it's for personal reasons. It's just romance, really.
Yeah, but what's interesting is I don't know if you heard what happened with that Irish brand a couple of years back, Waterford.
No.
I believe they went under or something. Take all that with a grain of salt. But I know that they definitely had some issues. I don't know if they're still in production or if they were bought out or if someone helped. But they did have to shut down, and their business was not going well, and their whole platform was terroir. So this is a release sourced from this farm, and then this one's from this farm, and they'll give you the name of the farm, and that's the name of the release. And it seems like consumers weren't that interested, or maybe they just didn't really. I'm sure it just comes down to flavor. Maybe they just weren't vibing with some of the flavors. I don't know if it was just about, there's a lot of money stuff behind the scenes that might have caused that. But that, their whole thing was terroir, was my point. And it didn't work out for them. I'm not saying that's why. It might have been a factor. I don't know. But certainly, I think any consumer, the more they know, the more they'll appreciate that you're sharing. One thing for me is Bruichladdich. Bruichladdich does a lot of that sort of like, this is the kind of barley we're using. And back in the day, they had a great release called, it was a 2007 Rockside Farm Isla barley. And man, that was good stuff. It was basically like a springbank. It almost there's a funkiness to it, like a springbank. And they sourced their barley from a farm called Rockside Farm, which I think has since been sold to Kilchoman. And when I taste Kilchoman's 100% Isla, I get some of those notes that remind me of that 2007 Bruichladdich release. And it's like, can I taste the farm? Is that what's happening here? Am I tasting like a very specific set of flavors that come from that farm, that barley? I don't know, but my mind kind of, I feel like I do, maybe, Mm-hmm. So yeah, terroir is important.
You probably do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's definitely. I was literally going to come to 100% Isla from Kilchoman, right? And is it Rockside or Rockport? I think it's Rockside. Yeah, you're right.
Rockside.
Yeah. But that's, to be honest, for you and I think that was what actually attracted us to that whiskey. We're like, oh, this is 100% Isla whiskey. It's the barley's from there, it's malted there, it's stored there. Whereas, all the Kalila stuff, comes from somewhere else. It's matured it's matured somewhere else. It's stored somewhere else, and we never get to know. And so a whiskey like Kalila or Lagavulin will never have terroir associated with it. So, and also there is this requirement to find craft whiskies, and I think Kilchoman does that, and I think it does it by being transparent about the terroir, about what kind of barley it uses. They tell you what kind of yeast they use. They tell you the serial number on the cask. Where the cask was sourced from, where exactly in the warehouse it's stored. So I think all of that, coming together, I think for me makes the whiskey that much more attractive.
Yeah.
And it has to taste good.
I mean,
it has to taste good.
It always has to taste good. Yeah, sure. But just knowing that, it always helps. It's always going to help. So yeah, okay. I think that's that covered. One last thing I want to move on to before we start. I don't want this to be a 45-minute podcast, so let's try and speed through things a little bit. Next question I have for you is I want to know about some of the recent whiskeys that you've been enjoying. So maybe in the last week, last couple of weeks, last month, whatever. So I've got a few categories, and I'd like to hear your answer for each of them. So I've got, I want to know a new discovery of yours. I want to know if you've rediscovered any old friends when it comes to bottles. And there's two that are related to pricing. One that we don't want to say budget, but let's say reasonably priced, meaning, it might be a bit of a splurge, but it's somewhat affordable. And then unreasonably priced, where you're swimming in luxury. You paid a bunch of money and you're treating yourself. So, have you got whiskeys ready to answer those questions?
Yeah, I do.
All right.
So what are we starting with first?
We're going to start with your new discovery. So something you've not had before.
Okay, good. So I recently had the Glencairn 15.
I saw your review.
Which yeah. So I literally got my hands on that, I want to say last week. And I hadn't tried it before. Did I like it? I think the short answer is yes. It has its minor flaws. I think it's maybe a little more on the savory tobacco side, and where I think maybe the sherry kind of overpowered it. But overall, I think very decent drinking experience. I think decently priced as well, not very expensive. I think I want to say we're not discussing price right now, are we? But anyway, it was like about, I want to say maybe about $80, $80 or $100, something like that. I could be wrong, but it wasn't that expensive that I had to think about it. So yeah, that's what I discovered this week.
Okay.
What I rediscovered is interesting. Is I used to drink a lot of this back in the day, and I came back to it this week, was the Amrut Fusion. So I used to drink a lot of Amrut Fusion back in the day, and I kind of then, it was sitting on my shelf for a while, and then I never really got around to drinking it back again. And the other day I was sitting down and saying, whoa, I haven't had this in a while. Let me see if it still stacks up, right? And dude, they just absolutely nailed that whiskey. It is such a perfect balance of oak and that sweetness that works together so well. Just that little bit of hint of peat, just a very slight hint of peat. So yeah, rediscovered the Amrut Fusion. Going to be drinking a lot more of that.
Well, that's something I've not had in years. And for me, it was actually, I always found it a little bit batchy, because I remember I had one bottle that I really enjoyed and then one that I didn't. So and then the second one was the one I was kind of less keen on. So I haven't really been compelled to come back to it, but I've heard a few people say, no, it's worth checking out. Like, obviously, I'm sure 10 years on, the batches would be different. The flavors probably drifted a little bit. So it might be something I should rediscover. Okay, interesting. So Amrut Fusion. How about your reasonably priced bottle?
My reasonable price bottle, I'll have to say, would be the Arran American Madeira cask. I thought that was fairly, I mean, it's at about 60 pounds, so whatever, $70, $75. Which, look, probably a bit on the higher side, but I don't think it's an unreasonable price. Is it a bit overpriced? Maybe. But I think definitely reasonably priced, in my opinion. For the flavor it delivers, right? So obviously that's super important. If it was a shitty whiskey at $75, then definitely unreasonable. But I think I gave it an 8.5 when I did my review. I think it was like maybe a month ago. I just absolutely loved it, and it has that warm, comforting Christmas cake, perfectly balanced sherry. flavors that I really look for, which I'm very, very picky about. And that to me kind of did it. And I thought it was fantastic.
Okay. Yeah, no, that is a good one. I'm with you on that one. Last one, because I want to kind of rush through before this gets too long. Unreasonably priced. So what's your posh bottle? What are you showing off for us today?
My unreasonably priced. So there are a couple, and again, this is an interesting one. It's called the Rampur. It's you know what? Give me a second. I'm just gonna pick the bottle up. Hold on. So I'll put it up on we can put it up on the screen. But have you heard of Rampur? It's another Indian whiskey.
Yes, I think I have, but I've not tried it. So this is a completely different brand. It's nothing to do with Paul John or Amrut or Indri or any of those.
No, it's a completely different brand, and they have this whiskey called the Jugalbandi, which means trade off. Like, you know, when you have it's called riffing. So like, you know, when you have two musicians who are playing back and forth like in jazz.
Right.
And then they've named it because it's like two different casks. So decent drinking experience. It comes in at cask strength, but it's a non-age statement, and it's for about $250.
Okay. Yeah, that's a pricey one especially for the no age thing. But I guess ages are difficult when it comes to Indian climates, right? So it's tough because they're always going to be on the younger side, right?
Yeah. Look, having said that, I think it tastes really well. So it delivers on the flavor profile. And I got these as gifts, to be honest. I didn't go out and splurge $250 on it. Somebody gifted it to me. So thank you for that. Is it worth the $250 price tag? Personally, don't think so. Is it a good whiskey? Yeah, 100%.
Cool. All right. Well, all right. In that case, I'm going to go through mine. You? Yeah, I'm going to go through mine. So my new discovery is a bit of a cheat because it's not a new discovery, except it is a new discovery because it's a batch whiskey. So we were just talking about it. I only picked up the new, but the latest Isla barley, which is batch 14 from Kilchoman. Is it Isla barley, 100% Isla? I think it's 100% Isla.
100% Isla.
So I had the batch 13, absolutely loved it. But it's a little bit tough to find in my market, and I finally tracked down a bottle of the batch 14. So I only started drinking that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it's lovely. It's beautiful stuff. I really think that's so slept on from Kilchoman. Obviously, it's not quite as heavily peated, so it's not as dramatic as some of their other releases. But I like that sort of like they bring the smoky peatiness down. They ramp up the barley notes in it, and it's just a completely different beast. It's a completely different animal out of Kilchoman, but really nice, balanced, and genuinely unique. Like there's no other whiskey that tastes quite like it. So that was my new discovery this week.
Nice. I'm a big fan of the overall range.
It's beautiful.
Isla
right?
barley, yeah. 100% Isla.
For rediscovering an old friend, I'm going to get a little bit fancy here. I was actually out with the boys last night, and one of my buddies brought along an Ardbeg Ugadal circa 2006.
What?
Yeah. And you know, Ugadal is famously that is the poster boy whiskey for was so good back in the day. It's not what it used to be. That's always the complaints, and you know, you don't want to sound like an old shithead just complaining about that kind of thing, but that is correct. It was incredible back in the day.
Wow.
It was substantially older. Just the integration of the sherry, this rich, deep, dark sherry, heavy peat, older stock, gorgeous balance. Oh man, blew me away. And you know, we were having some really fancy stuff last night, and for a bunch of us, we ended up putting that in the top 5 just because it was that spectacular. So rediscovering an old friend. I remember those early days with the Ugadal, you know, 2009s, and I think The 2006 might have been the oldest one I had. But yeah, Arbegoudal. Reasonably priced. I'm going to go with the Glencairn 8 bourbon cask strength. You know, not cheap,
Great
but
pick.
yeah, that one's a beauty. So that one, what does that sell for? Should be 70, 60 pounds. I don't know how much it goes for. Yeah. In my market, it's sold for about that. And beautiful, absolutely beautiful stuff. So not cheap, but reasonably priced. Yes, and gorgeous whiskey. And unreasonably priced, I'm going to go with my I treated myself recently. I picked up a 1996 Ben Nevis, which is famously the magic year from Ben Nevis. And it delivered. It was a gorgeous whiskey. It was
Look at you fancy boy.
Yeah, I'm showing off with this one, definitely. But damn, it was good. Was it worth the money? You can't even talk about that. You know, when whiskeys are that expensive, because it's like, no, because no drink ever should be that expensive. But then you just buy it because you're like, I'm going to, like, it's a birthday gift, you know, or it's a special event. Yeah. And you just treat yourself and you're like, fuck it. So that was a beauty. So that was my unreasonably priced pick. So yeah, I might be showing off a little bit today, but there we go. All right. Sweet. So let's start wrapping things up here. We both have whiskeys in our glass. I've got mine right here. You've got yours, and we're just going to play a little quick game where we have 10 questions, and it's yes or no questions, and you got to boil it down. Maybe not necessarily to the exact bottle, but let's say boil it down to the distillery at the very least. So I don't know. Who wants to start? Do you want to start, or shall I?
Why don't you start and you guess what I have in my glass right now?
Okay. So
maybe the color helps.
Yeah, that definitely looks. I don't even know if that's sherry. That might be. Is it a sherried whiskey?
Yes.
Sherried. Okay.
I'm going to tell you that it's very sherry forward.
Is it an older whiskey?
Not that old, but definitely oldish.
It's yes or no. That's all you can give me. Yes or no.
Oh, my bad. Okay. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, all right. Is it a Speyside?
Yes, it is.
Speyside. Okay. Does it start with Glen?
Yes, it does.
All right. So it starts with Glen. Speyside on the older side. Heavily sherried. Does it have any? No, I don't want to ask that. Is it cask strength?
No.
No. Not cask strength. Is it 18 years old?
No.
This is getting tough. I don't know what to ask. Is it...
You're almost there.
Is it a Diageo?
It is not a Diageo.
Not Diageo. Is it family owned?
No.
Okay. So, not... Is it a Glenlivet?
No. Well, I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
Shall I give you a hint?
Yeah. I'm at question 7.
Oh, okay. But I'll give you a hint because I think you're almost there and I think you'll catch on. So, the man behind this whiskey is quite a figure in the industry, fairly well known. And I'll give you a hint that over the last month or so, you and I have been kind of talking about it.
Glenallachie.
Yes, it is. Well, that was too big of a hint, was it?
Is that the 15?
Yeah, it's the Glenalachie 15.
Ah, you just reviewed it. Yeah, and we were just talking about it. I should have. Oh man, I should have gone right there. Ah. Oh well. Especially, Speyside, sherried, starts with a Glen. And I know you've been on about Glenalachie lately. I should have gone straight there. I'm disappointed with myself. All right, fine. Your turn, sir.
Okay, let's, do you have it in the glass?
I do. I can hold it up to the camera there for you.
Okay. That also looks interesting. So, let's start, Scottish.
Yes.
Sherried.
Yes.
Well, same question. Speyside?
No.
Ah, excellent. By maybe virtue of that, could be Holland. Peated?
No.
Okay. Does it start with Glen?
No.
So let's go Highland.
Nope.
Ah. Now the thing is, I'm not trying to play the whiskey, I'm trying to play the man.
I feel like I should give you a hint.
Okay.
Because it's tough to narrow down, especially if we're talking regions. It is unpeated, unlike most of its friends nearby.
Oh, okay. That's a big hint because that kind of takes me towards Bruichladdich or Bunnahabhain. So I'm gonna hazard a guess and say Isla.
Isla, yes.
So then I think I'm more leaning towards Bunnahabhain then because of the sherry. Unpeated Bunnahabhain. Okay. Is it 12 years old?
No.
I'm gonna hazard a guess, and you can tell me how off I am. Is that the Bunnahabhain 18? Yes!
Heyo. There we go. That wasn't even 10 questions, was it? You legend. What a star. What a star.
I come.
Oh, well done. Yeah, I wasn't even counting your questions, but that was less than 10. All right, I have been put to shame. God damn it. All right, fine. Well done.
Thank you. But you did kind of give me a massive hint with that.
Yeah, but so did you, to be fair. So,
It's a massive hint. But and I have a few years on you as well, so don't feel too bad.
There we go. Sure. This is a beauty. I'm sure you've had Bunna 18, right? Gorgeous. Love it.
Yeah, of course. Beautiful. And in my market, the Bunnahabhain 25, I have it sitting back here on my shelf. It's actually very decently priced for, I think, under $200 for the 25-year-old.
Really?
Yeah.
Nowhere near that cheap here.
Yeah,
I always brag about Taiwan being like super cheap, but then there's a few select bottles where suddenly it's massively cheaper elsewhere, and then we have this just ridiculous price tag on it. Tamdu is overpriced here. Apparently, Bunna 25 overpriced here. So yeah, all right, yeah, definitely worth
really?
200. Wonderful.
Cool.
All right,
that was fun, man. That was fun.
Yeah, that was fun, man. Today was fun. So yeah, I think we can probably leave it there.
Leave on a high. Leave on the highest note.
Leave on a high. Yeah, while we're riding high. All right, so I guess we'll see you in the next round of Caskholes. How often are we doing these, buddy? We're doing these every, let's say, 3-4 weeks. I don't know, 2 weeks.
Let's aim for it. Yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, I think let's start with once a month at least, and then when we're rolling in the dough, we can take a little more time out.
Yeah, when we're rich and famous YouTubers, absolutely. Because I always get these questions like, how often are these coming out? And it's like when we get to it, but semi-often, I guess, Yeah. But yeah. All right, so we'll see you in the next episode. Everyone out there, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's show. And we should probably think of some kind of clever sign-off for Caskholes.
Right.
Stick it in my... No. I don't know. So we'll have a good one for you next time.
We need, yeah. Exactly.
Right.
Peace out.
Peace, buddy. See you next time. Bye.